Hello, I'm John, and this is Curiosities of Nature and History. In the far reaches of the Colorado Plateau, where the land rises into a high desert of wind-shaped stone and endless sky, there is a place where the earth remembers. A place where time is measured not in years, but in layers. Where stories are carved into sandstone, and where the horizon is guarded by giants. This is Monument Valley, the Valley of the Rocks. A landscape so iconic that it has become the world's shorthand for the American West. But behind the postcard view lies a deeper story, one of geology, ancient peoples, Navajo culture, ecology, and a century of cinematic myth-making. Our journey begins at the Visitor Center, perched at more than a mile above sea level. From its terrace, the valley opens before you like a vast amphitheater, a stage set with three of the most recognizable formations in the world: West Mitten, East Mitten, and Merrick Butte. To understand Monument Valley, we begin not with the mittens or the mesas, but with the land itself, and the forces that shaped it long before humans walked these sands. Imagine turning back the clock of Earth's history, not by centuries, but by hundreds of millions of years. The story of Monument Valley begins in a world that looks nothing like the one we see today. 300 million years ago, this region was part of a shifting mosaic of landscapes. At different times it was a coastal plain, a river delta, a tidal flat, and finally, one of the largest deserts the planet has ever known. Around 250 million years ago, the land became a Sahara-sized dune field. Wind piled sand into mountains hundreds of feet tall. Over time, those dunes compacted and cemented into Decheli sandstone, the pale orange rock that forms the heart of every butte and mesa in the valley. If you look closely at the cliffs, you can still see the diagonal lines of ancient sand dunes frozen in stone, cross-bedding that records the directions of winds that blew long before humans existed. They are the fingerprints of a vanished desert. Later, seasonal floods swept across the region, depositing Moenkopi mudstone, a softer, reddish layer that erodes easily. Then came braided rivers, laying down the Shinerump conglomerate, a tough, gravel-rich capstone. This capstone is the secret to Monument Valley's dramatic shapes. Where it remains intact, mesas stand broad and flat. Where it has broken away, buttes rise as isolated towers. Where even the buttes have eroded, pinnacles and spires remain, the final delicate stage of erosion. Fast forward to about 70 million years ago, the entire region rose thousands of feet during the uplift of the Colorado Plateau. This uplift didn't tilt or fold the land. It lifted it like a giant table. That stability is why the rock layers here remain so beautifully horizontal. Once the land was raised, erosion began its slow, patient work. Water carved through the soft layers. Wind scoured the cliffs. Freeze-thaw cycles widened cracks. Gravity pulled weakened rock downward. Monument Valley did not rise from the desert floor. Everything around it fell away. What remains today are the strongest survivors, the bones of an ancient landscape, revealed by millions of years of erosion. As the road curves towards a broad overlook, the land opens into a sweeping stage, a natural balcony above the valley floor. This is John Ford's Point, a place where cinema and landscape became inseparable. Stand here, and you can almost feel the hum of old film cameras, the clatter of horses, the shouted cues of a director who saw something in this valley that no one else had recognized. When John Ford arrived in 1938, Monument Valley was not yet famous. It was remote, rugged, and largely unknown outside the Navajo Nation. But Ford saw myth in the stone. He saw a frontier that felt vast and untamed. A place where the American West could be distilled into a single horizon. From this point, Ford filmed some of the most iconic horseback scenes in Stagecoach. The valley became a character in the film, silent, powerful, unforgettable, and audiences around the world fell in love with a landscape they had never seen before. John Ford had found a place that matched the scale of his stories, and Monument Valley became the backdrop for a new kind of cinematic West. Ford returned again and again, filming My Darling Clementine, Fort Apache, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, The Searchers, and How the West Was Won. Each film added to the valley's legend, turning its mesas and buttes into symbols recognized around the world. But Monument Valley's film history didn't end with the golden age of westerns. In 1968, Sergio Leone used the valley in Once Upon a Time in the West, blending European filmmaking with American myth. In 1975, Clint Eastwood climbed Totem Pole for the Eiger Sanction, creating one of the most daring climbing sequences ever filmed. And in 1994, Forrest Gump cemented Highway 163 as a pop culture landmark, where Forrest stopped running and said, "I'm pretty tired. Think I'll go home now." Commercials, music videos, documentaries, and even animated films have used Monument Valley's silhouette. Its shapes are so iconic that even a simple outline, a butte, a mesa, a spire, instantly evokes the American West. Yet for all its fame, the valley remains unchanged. The wind still shapes the dunes, the sun still paints the cliffs, and the land still belongs to the Navajo Nation, whose stewardship protects the valley from overdevelopment. Hollywood may have borrowed Monument Valley, but it never owned it. The land remembers who it belongs to. Monument Valley may appear barren at first glance, but look closer and you'll find a desert ecosystem rich with life. Sagebrush spreads across the valley floor. Its silvery leaves shimmer in the sun. Rabbit brush blooms with bright yellow flowers after summer rains. Juniper and pinyon pine cling to the rocky slopes. Their roots reach deep into cracks where moisture hides. Cryptobiotic soil crust, a living mat of cyanobacteria, moss, and lichen, forms dark patches across the desert. It is fragile, essential, and ancient. Step on it, and you can destroy decades of growth. Coyotes move silently through the brush. Kit foxes hunt at night. Pronghorn, the fastest land animals in North America, glide across the plain with astonishing grace. Golden eagles nest on high cliffs, and crows ride the thermal winds. Long before Hollywood arrived, long before the Navajo settled here, Monument Valley was home to ancient peoples whose stories are carved into the sides of these ancient monoliths. The earliest inhabitants were Paleo-Indian hunters, who roamed the region during the Ice Age, tracking mammoths and bison across a cooler, wetter landscape. Later came archaic hunter-gatherers, leaving behind stone tools, hearths, and traces of seasonal camps. Between 1200 BC and 1300 AD, the ancestral Puebloans, often called the Anasazi, farmed corn, beans, and squash in the region. They built pit houses, stored grain in stone granaries, and carved petroglyphs depicting bighorn sheep, human figures, and ceremonial symbols. These petroglyphs appear throughout the valley, often near water sources. or sheltered alcoves. They are windows into a world where survival depended on intimate knowledge of land and season. The Navajo arrived between the 13 and 1500s, migrating from the north and developing a pastoral lifestyle centered on sheep herding. Their culture grew around the land, its stories, its spirits, its rhythms. In 1884, Monument Valley was added to the Navajo Reservation. In 1958, it became a Navajo tribal park, not a U.S. national park, but a sovereign landscape, protected by the people who call it home. Inside the visitor center is more than a place to buy tickets. It's a cultural gateway. Exhibits trace the history of the Navajo Nation, whose people have lived in and around this valley for centuries. You'll find displays of traditional weaving, intricate rugs dyed with natural pigments, and silver jewelry set with turquoise, each piece carrying stories of family, land, and tradition. Photographs line the walls, showing the early days of tourism when families arrived in Model Ts and camped beneath the cliffs. There are maps explaining the valley's geology, diagrams showing how mesas become buttes, and how buttes become spires. One section honors the Navajo Code Talkers, whose unbreakable language helped win World War II, a reminder that this land has shaped not only culture, but history. And then there is the story of Harry Golding, whose trading post once stood just down the road. Harry arrived in Monument Valley in the 1920s with his wife, Mike. They built a small trading post, living among Navajo families, trading goods, offering supplies, and becoming part of the community. During the Great Depression, the valley was struggling. Tourism was non-existent. Families were hungry. Sheep herds were thin. Harry believed that if people could see Monument Valley, truly see it, everything would change. So he gathered photographs of the valley, packed them into a suitcase, and drove all the way to Los Angeles. He walked into United Artists, without an appointment, without a contact, without a plan, just determination. Legend says he waited for hours, refusing to leave. Eventually, director John Ford saw the photos. He was captivated. Within weeks, Ford brought his cast and crew to Monument Valley to film Stagecoach. The movie became a classic, the valley became a symbol, and Harry Golding's gamble changed the future of the Navajo Nation forever. His trading post still stands today, a museum, a lodge, and a reminder that one person's belief in a place can reshape its destiny. Monument Valley is more than a landscape. It's a story, written in stone, carried in tradition, and shared with those who come with open eyes and open hearts. Here the earth remembers, and if you listen closely, you might remember something too. I'm John. Thanks for joining me on this journey. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.